Welcome to the High Adventure Scouting Podcast. This is the source for all things high adventure for scouts, scouters, and anyone else interested in promoting high adventure trips for our youth. You can find all kinds of great high adventure options for your scouts at highadventurescouting.com. We are constantly updating the list of cool trips, and we want your input on your best trip. Welcome, high adventure enthusiasts. We are excited, as always, to highlight a high adventure base on this edition of the High Adventure Scouting Podcast. Today, we are joined by Sean McEneaney, Program and Base Director for the Maine High Adventure Base located in northern Maine. It is operated by the Katahdin Area Council of the Boy Scouts of America. Sean, thanks for joining us today on the High Adventure Scouting Podcast.
Hey, Rob, thank you for having me. It's a lot of fun to be involved with something like this.
Awesome. Well, as always, we want to give the listeners a little more information about your program offerings. And, we're just going to jump into things and kind of tell us the cool stuff that's going on up in Maine and the things that you guys are going to be doing during the summer.
Yeah, of course. So a little bit more about the Katahdin Area Council's program, Maine High Adventure. We've operated since 1971 as a high adventure base for scouts, scouters, and explorers. So basically what we do is we offer entirely custom treks to any unit that comes up to us based on their desires and their ability, what they really want to do that week. So a normal trek at Maine High Adventure typically is about 8 days long, and you get a group to show up on base their first day and they meet their guide. So this is a guide that we train pretty thoroughly for about a month before we actually start running our program. So that guide meets your group. That guide will stay with you guys the whole time you go on your trek. And typically they're going to be interpreting biological, historical, and natural features of the land. So, we do everything from whitewater paddling, wildlife observation. We also do a lot of historical field visitations, within 4 million acres of the North Maine woods, which is where we primarily operate out of. There's a lot to see, and there's a lot of American history that's kind of been laid to rest in those areas, whether it's, old logging or camping sites, abandoned heavy machinery that was once used to draw and harvest timber from the land. There's just a whole lot that's kind of stuffed in that 4 million acres. And we primarily like to use canoes to travel through all that. So consisting of like the Allagash Wilderness Waterway is probably one of our most popular areas of travel, as well as the St. Croix Waterway, the Cockmagomic Lake region, and the East and West Branch Penobscot rivers. So it's a pretty dynamic program. You can go, you can give us your idea of an easy trek, fishing every day, low mileage, all the way up to a strenuous trek where you're getting up before the sun rises and getting onto the water and getting into camp before the sun sets to go to bed and do it again the next day. So again, it's all really based on what that group wants to do within their stay with us.
So it's pretty custom trek, whatever they really want to do within the parameters that you have there.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, when you meet your guide on that first day, they take you up to our base property and you meet another one of our staff members called the chief guide. So that chief guide is pretty much knows that 4 million acres like the back of their hand. And he'll kind of give you a little crash course in what's available to see out there. And that's when you start giving us your ideas as to, well, hey, we really think we want to do some whitewater this day. And then we want to try and hit some good fishing spots, but we also really want to see a moose. So that chief guide will take all those options and say, okay, well, I'm going to throw you guys on some of the best whitewater we have. I'm going to get you to some of the best fishing holes we know of. And, this campsite right here, for sure, you'll see a moose. So it's very custom and it's incredibly personal because it takes that experience of going out into the woods to actually design those treks. I was the chief guide at one point for a couple of years, but it really took me 2 or 3 years of guiding before I got to know that map well enough to start planning trips.
Very cool. What's the you're having a crew up there. What's the maximum, or is the minimum maximum size of crews up in the North Country in Maine?
Yeah, of course. So So our minimum group size is 7 people. So that's the smallest group we can take, and you're always going to have a plus one because you always have that guide with you.
Right.
Our maximum group size is 11. So the biggest groups that we put out there are 12 people, 11 participants, whether adult or youth, and then one guide. And that seems to be pretty standard with a lot of scouting camps and private camps up in the North Maine woods. I think most of the time you don't normally see any groups larger than 12 in the Allagash or St. Croix areas anyway.
And that was what I was going to ask, whether that's is that a mandated thing? Like, I know up in the boundary waters they have, you can only have so many. I think 9, and some other areas they have restrictions on how many in a group. So I wasn't sure if that was typical or just mandated or just normal for the Northwoods.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. So the state of Maine, with most trip leaders, once you obtain your trip leader permit from Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, really don't allow you to supervise more than 12 people. So that is pretty standard amongst the whole state itself.
Okay. I'm not sure I'd want more than 12 in a group that like that. Anyway, that's a lot to keep track of. So, um,
Absolutely.
what now? I know some of the high adventure bases have options for scouts that are considered provisional at a lot of places. Do you have that option, or is it really crew centric to where you kind of keep that particular crew together?
No, of course, this past summer was actually one of my first experiences with a provisional unit, combined of a couple leaders who had participated before in the past and had reached out to a local unit near them. I'm pretty positive they were from, I think it was Pennsylvania or Virginia. But essentially, you had a couple leaders who had participated before, and they had some buddies down the road and another troop who they reached out to, and so that was probably the closest thing to a provo group that I've experienced. But we always welcome it. We always like to encourage provo units, lone scouts, people who really want that experience, to give them a platform to kind of share it with someone else if they can.
Now, let's say that's an option for you have a troop that has a couple that are interested or one. Is that something that you would need to know as soon as possible so you could connect them with a particular unit coming up there, a particular time, or is that something you do shortly before they get there?
I'd say it's this. I keep hearing this motto that people are using: "Be prepared." So, so of course, knowing as early as we can ahead of time is always going to have a higher likelihood of that trip going smoother and that coordinating getting done a little bit better.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm a planner. I like to plan things well in advance, so that would fit within my interest level. So, um, what's the obviously most people want to know. All right, where are you at? What do you do? What are the costs involved? Is it the same for all treks, or are there different cost structures?
Well, so our deposit is standard across the whole board. No matter how many days you'd like to stay or how many people you're bringing, it's always a $500 deposit. Um, Now, once you make that deposit and we receive your reservation form and we know how many people you're bringing, we have a matrix where let's say you're bringing 11 people for 8 nights. Well, in the year of 2020, that's $88 per person per day. So, of course, 11 is the maximum group size. But let's say you brought 7 people for 8 nights. Well, that's $96 per person per day for the year of 2020. So, I guess the easiest way to describe it is it's a better deal to bring more people and stay as long as you can.
Okay. It's kind of like I know a lot of people are used to the major high adventure bases like Sea Base. And I think that's kind of how they do it. You can bring however many, but this is the price. So, and this is how much it's going to be per person, basically. So, um, now that I assume that $500 is a per crew deposit. Is that correct?
Right, of course. So let's
Okay.
say you're a single troop and you have 22 people who want to participate. Well, we'll break them into 2 crews and they'll each pay a deposit. Um, yeah, so correct. It's per crew.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
That's absolutely right.
Just anticipating questions that people will have. Those are questions I would have within my troop. So, um, how early do crews need to get information, or get a deposit in for a particular time frame to really get, let's say for the 2020 season, how early did you need to get stuff in to get a crew?
Well, we really like to be as flexible as possible. I think the earliest reservation I got for 2020 was probably in July of 2019. So I started sending that group's preparatory paperwork out in probably September or October of 2019. Once my season had kind of wrapped up, and an opportunity to let some dust settle. But realistically, a year ahead of time is really only to your benefit. That's really going to help you guys prepare to fundraise. It's going to give you that extra time to review all the literature. And we're first come, first serve. So the earlier you get that reservation form in, the higher likelihood you have at getting that week or that 9 days or that 10 days that really works for every member in the group and that you guys really desire. So I always recommend a year in advance. But hey, we're getting close to the end of January, and I'm still taking reservations for 2020.
Right.
So we try to be as flexible as possible. But again, that "be prepared" motto starts shadowing us again. So I always recommend a year ahead of time.
How long is your season up there? I mean, how many weeks of treks do you typically have during the summer?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So for our operating season, our program season, we're going to start on June 28th this year, and our final day will be August 16th. So 6 weeks doesn't sound like a whole lot, but if you're a staff member with us, you're going to show up on base June 1st of that
Mhm.
participating year. We take about 3.5 weeks to really thoroughly train these guides, where we have inland fisheries and wildlife come in to train them. We have Baxter State Park in the past has participated to help train, as well as a lot of land and forestry management companies will come in and train. So for our staff, the summer starts June 1st and typically doesn't end until about August 20th. But for our participants, we start seeing them the last week of June, and typically we start waving goodbye and they start heading home about the second week in August.
Okay. All right. Now, is there a set time that treks will start, or do they start, every day, or what's the typical start time for your treks?
We encourage people to come, whatever day of the week works best for you. So I have had before in the past where, let's say, a Monday through Friday week, we have a new group coming Monday through Friday. Every day we'll have a new group show up, as well as, some groups coming back. Um, Other weeks we may only have groups showing up on the weekend. It's all pretty much based on what day of the week you guys would like to come up or our participants really want to come. So it fluctuates. It changes really often. I can already see a couple weeks in this summer coming up where I'll have people coming on every day, and then for another week we will only see people getting off the trail.
Mhm.
Um, so it has its highs and its lows of oncoming and off-going troops.
Right. Right. Now, where do most of the groups come from? I'm assuming you're in the Northeast, so you see quite a few from the Northeast. But what's the geographical makeup of a lot of the crews?
I'd say a very high majority of our groups are coming from Spirit of Adventure Council, Mayflower Council, Connecticut Yankee Rivers. We see a lot of people pretty much stretch from New Jersey up to Massachusetts. That's
Mhm.
probably our densest participation rate. But last year I had a group come all the way out from Illinois, as
Mhm.
well as this year I'm having a group come all the way up from Kentucky. But I want to say New England is probably our heaviest focus of participants.
Right. Right. Well, I live in St. Louis, actually in Illinois, so I know it's quite a distance to
Oh
to
yeah,
go up there. Yeah, but
yeah.
cool. And that's kind of what I figured. Usually, you want to stay a little bit closer regionally. It's easier to get places. But once they hear about the programs, you may have more from other places. So
Well, and the nice thing is, how accessible we are. With some of the other high adventure bases that we're familiar with, that involves, taking a plane and then from the airport having to get a charter bus or some sort of transportation
Mhm.
miles out to the base. We're completely accessible by highway. Pretty much everybody who comes to us drives, so we're very accessible.
Right. Exactly. Now, are there? I have had some of the questions in the past. People will look as far as troops, if there's other, options like regular summer camps near the high adventure base. Just out of curiosity, are there any traditional camps within driving distance of the Maine High Adventure base?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, our resident camp for Katahdin Area Council is Katahdin Scout Reservation, better known as Roosevelt Scout Camp.
Mhm.
Is only about a 2-hour drive from our base. It's in a small town called Eddington, right outside of the city of Bangor. Sorry, let me correct that. Sometimes it feels like a town, but it is a city. Yeah,
I've been there. It's a city. Yes.
yeah. So we have a resident camp not far at all outside of downtown Bangor, and we're celebrating our 100 years with Katahdin Scout Reservation this year. It's a beautiful camp. There's a lot of history there. Just the property is immaculate. It's really beautiful property to hike, as well as the facilities there are top notch, absolutely top notch.
Right. And where do most of your staff come from? Are they from the Northeast also, or do they come from all over?
That's a great question because, yeah, we do get a lot of staff from New England. In the past, we've had a whole lot of staff come from Maine. The summer of 2019, most of our staff ended up coming from Baltimore Area Council. I think maybe that had something to do with me acting as the base director. I'm a Baltimore Area Council scouter myself.
Okay. Okay. All right. That makes
Right.
sense.
Yep. My home is Baltimore Area Council, but I now live in Bangor. So most of the staff I had come up this past summer were Baltimore Area Council staff and members who had spent time at Broad Creek Memorial Scout Reservation in the Baltimore Area Council Four Rivers District.
It sounds
But I
like you did some
but I
good
want to say,
recruiting, so that's good.
yeah, absolutely. Baltimore Area Council's got, in my opinion, some of the best scouters. But hey, that just means I got to get to see more of the country and more of the other councils that are out there.
That's
But I,
right.
I want to say,
That's good.
yeah, a heavy focus of our staff also come from Massachusetts. We get a lot of staff from Massachusetts, and we do have one staff member coming from California this year.
We all know the major high adventure bases around the country, and they offer some awesome programs. Have you been searching for a cool alternative from your typical high adventure trip? As a scout leader, I want to give our scouts some great alternatives. You need to check out highadventurescouting.com. You'll find information on over 30 different council high adventure bases in 24 states. Maybe you're looking for a do-it-yourself option and need some ideas. Maybe you've taken a great trip and you want to share your good fortune with your fellow scouts and scouters. Just send us the details and we'll publish your trip. Whatever your interest, highadventurescouting.com is the one-stop shop for all things high adventure. That's highadventurescouting.com. Now, on these treks, do troops and crews, do they need to bring tents and equipment and things with them? And if so, what do you guys provide as a part of the fees?
Oh, that's a really good question. So with our outfitting process, basically we provide tents, we provide food, we provide all the hard goods necessary for cooking. So you think about your stereotypical Boy Scout 4-quart and 2-quart pots,
Hmm.
your fire grates. We try to provide as much as we can. So realistically, when participants show up here, they have the clothing that they'll need for the week, a mess kit to eat out of, and miscellaneous small hard goods like flashlights, pocket knife, fishing rod. We try to provide as much of the basic necessities: the tents, the food, and the cooking gear.
Okay. Now, what else? What else do you want to kind of talk about? I mean, what as far as the programs? What kind of cool things that have you seen? Whatever whatever interests you, because I'm curious more about the program.
I think one thing, when I went to Philmont in 2012, one of my biggest interests being in that area was the Native American culture. Um, so when you talk about Poblano and Indian writings at Philmont Scout Reservation, that was absolutely one of my favorite parts. And I think a lot of people forget how heavy the Native American culture is in Maine. Most of the property we're traveling is past native property. There's still a whole lot of history, as well as there's a lot of residents here who are Native American. So that's one of my favorite features of Maine High Adventure is you really get a good introduction, and I don't want to say crash course, but definitely some good interpretation of the local and Native American history from here in the past, as well as there's a lot of camps that highlight certain features of their program. I think with Philmont, I definitely got the Cowboys and Indians feel. With Seabase, it was fishing, scuba diving, and Maine High Adventure. We really focus on the lumber history, so lumberjacks, river driving, and a lot of that part of the American history. So I think conceptually we like to cover some more of that history, the American and Native history. But also it's a very interesting experience to see how so many people in the state of Maine and residents of the state of Maine take advantage of their property and their open recreational properties. Like I said, the 4 million acres that we use is open recreational property that's owned by about several different landowners. But if you do run into anybody throughout your stay at Maine High Adventure, typically they're a Maine state resident who are just out fishing, or they're out enjoying their family's camp in the woods. So it gives you a different take on just being an outdoorsman or an outdoors woman, and how that can be continued even outside of scouting.
Now, what's I'm going to kind of circle back on some of the options that troops and crews will figure out on their own and kind of have custom trips for the week. Is there a typical option that groups will decide, hey, we want to do this, and this during our stay here, or is it all over the map?
It's really all over the map. I can't say that when I was chief guide, I ever planned a trip that was exactly like the last one or the one before. It is entirely custom and unique to each group that comes up. I'd say most groups that come typically want a moderate trip. They want a little bit of whitewater, but not a ton. They definitely want to do some fishing, and they absolutely want to see some wildlife. I would say are probably our most common desired program possibilities. But no trip is the same as the last one.
Awesome. Well, I would love to come up there. I can't get to all these high adventure bases physically. There's just not enough time, but it sounds like an awesome place. And I really appreciate you joining us today and kind of talking a little bit about your programs and things that are coming up.
Rob, absolutely. Thanks for having me again. I appreciate it. It's always just fun to chat high adventure.
Well, I feel the same way. So now I want to thank Sean McEneaney, Program and Base Director for Maine High Adventure Base, for joining us today. Now you can get more information on their programs at mainehighadventure.org. That's mainehighadventure.org. Thanks for joining us today, and remember to tell your friends about this podcast. You can find us online at highadventurescouting.com, on Facebook or Instagram. If you have any questions or ideas for future podcasts, just email us at info@highadventurescouting.com. This podcast and website are independent and not affiliated with any youth organization. Happy High Adventure! This has been a production of High Adventure Resources, 2018. All rights reserved.